Hi, welcome. It is time for my campaign update, or I'm going to call it the state of my campaign, and then the state of my union, I should say, and the state of the world. So, welcome. I am Susan Maud Buchser-Lochocki. I am still a presidential candidate from the presidential election last year in the USA because there is so much corruption in the system and somebody has to put their foot down. So I have not conceded. I put my foot down and I have a lawsuit pending with the Supreme Court. And now I want to tell you a little bit about me, the state of my campaign, and what's being talked about is that artists in New York might have played a role in September 11th. So I am going to have to, I know I already announced this somewhere in all my videos, but I'm going to really announce it now. I don't usually have a lot of dreams. There have been times in my life where I've had dreams and I've had lots of deja vus. And since we don't really know what deja vus are, it's difficult to say. Some of my dreams do become deja vus later, so there is some correlation. And anyway, back when I was at art school, I had a dream, and it disturbed me enough where I even made it into sort of like, well, it's a book. It's a journal of my dream. I can't remember if it was an assignment we were supposed to do, or if it was just, it was so vivid that I felt the need to write it down. I don't normally do that, although there are occasionally times where I have really meaningful thoughts and dreams while I'm sleeping or coming awake or something, or going to sleep, where I have to write them down. And this one I did. But before I get into that, we'll start there. Okay, so this is the book. And the other part of this that I really need to explain is that there was a new medium at the time that came out to make artwork like this. It was a crayon that if you add water to it, it becomes water soluble, and then you can use it like watercolor. So this was one of my first works with this product, and it's made by Cavendish, which is a Swiss company. So, of all the things to use to illustrate my dream, a Swiss product, knowing that later I would be living in Switzerland, and then ultimately the day of September 11th happened when I was in Switzerland, watching it happen and unfold through Swiss TV. And it's just... I didn't have to pick a Swiss product to make this work of art, this book. So it's a little weird because it was an unknown product, and for some reason I just felt it was the right time to use it. So again, the connection is just a bit weird, coincidental. And I'm telling you about this dream that I had back in 1985, so last century. 85, I was in my second year of Parsons School of Design, and I was living at the dorms that they had for second year students, which was in a YMCA on 34th or 33rd Street, all the way over by 9th Avenue. And it was really quite slummy, and we had all sorts of cockroaches living with us and everything, but the price was affordable. And it was not only Parsons School of Design that was there, it was also, of course, the New School, which is part of, Parsons is part of the New School for Social Research. but it was also where the School of Visual Arts had some students also. And then New York University, so NYU, had a floor. And I think we even shared half of a floor with them. So, there were lots of students there, lots of art students, especially in 1985. And what I wrote, or how I called it, was A Day in the Life of My Dreams. There we go. Diana, Jane, and I, so these were friends of mine at the time, went to the World Trade Center. And I used to go there often. So going to Windows on the World was something I did often. I liked being a tourist in New York, even though I was living there. I did touristy things. So, I went to the World Trade Center and had coffee and had wine at the bar and had dinner sometimes. So it was one of my favorite places, actually. So for me, it's particularly hard that it is no longer there, because as soon as it was gone, it just didn't feel like New York for me anymore. So, what did I say? Went to the World Trade Center to see Garvin's art show. So Garvin was one of my friends too at Parsons, and I don't believe he was having an art show at the World Trade Center, but perhaps he was. I think it was more important that he's from a town of Greenwich, Connecticut, which is where I, at the time of September 11th, had a girlfriend who was from Greenwich, Connecticut. So I think that's where, in my dream, this was as close as my mind could come to telling me about my friend who is from Greenwich. And that, do they know each other? Maybe. They might know each other, but well, it could be. Anyways, she is no longer living because she passed away from cancers that she got from being around the buildings on September 11th and after. So she was one of the people who was supposed to be at work that day, that was sick and stayed home. But for her home was just around the corner. It was still in the World Trade Center complex, just in a different section. And apparently her windows blew out and all sorts of things. I managed to get through to her twice that day. First, when it was happening, after the second plane hit, I called to make sure she was okay, and I got through. I was thinking, the lines are going to be busy, and I couldn't get through. It wasn't a time where we had mobile phones, so, you had to call on the landline, and I got through. And I talked to her, and she said she was packing up, getting ready to go, that it's not looking good, and she was really happy she didn't go to work that day. So, I was happy she didn't go to work that day, too, because, she could live another almost 20 years. So then, what happened? So she's from Greenwich, and this guy who I knew from Parsons, he was from Greenwich. So I think that's why if my dream was a prediction, that's why he was in it. If it's not a prediction, I don't know why he's in it. Although maybe he did have an art show there. I don't know. It was like a sketchbook art show, because I have written in the background here sketchbook. So like an art show of his sketchbooks. And maybe since they're saying like, so I'm reading this to you now because of what's gone on with thinking there's a link between art students from Israel and September 11th. And, so maybe it's in their sketchbooks, I guess. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to be telling you. Look at the sketchbooks of these so-called artists. Then, here it is. Jane ran into a friend. Right, yeah. I wish I'd done more to make more details, but I didn't. So Jane stayed, and Diana and I left on the express elevator. So in the World Trade Center, the windows on the World had an express elevator up to the restaurant, and that's the one that Jane and I took to get out of there, I guess. This is before anything was happening. Then the elevator on the first floor flew out of the shaft. Yeah, or maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some pages missing. So I think the elevator, I don't really remember the dream so much anymore. I just remember that in my dream, the buildings were like swaying back and forth, and then they fell down. And I remember that my shoes turned into roller skates because they didn't have roller blades back then. And what happened? And eventually I spend time with the victims. So that's more or less, and the seeing the art show of my friend from Connecticut. Anyway, so it just says Diana and I left on the express elevator. Then the elevator on the first floor flew out of the shaft. So maybe there wasn't more to it than that. But this is the elevator shaft, and somehow the elevator, I guess that's Diana and I, and it's coming out of the shaft. There are the people waiting, and we go into the other building. So there's something special about the elevators. I don't know if they meant that that's like a safe place to be or not. I don't know. And into the lobby of the other building. So here we are in the elevator apparatus, the lift part. And then we're in the other building. Diana and I got up to look at the damage. So yeah, there was obviously damage if an elevator car goes flying out one building and into another, right? We realized that the World Trade Center buildings were falling down. So at that point we realized there must be something more than that. And we ran back to Sloan or Stone? I can't I can't read my own writing. Okay, so here's the World Trade Center is coming down. in my dream. We then had to go back because Jane and Garvin were still there. Suddenly, our shoes became roller skates. We walked up to the 5th floor and looked high and low. We could not find them, so we left. Somehow the stairs turned into a ramp. The design on the ramp is a color and design assignment that Diana did. So I was remembering one of her projects in my dream too. I don't know what that has to do with it. I believe it was a Christian Christmas card that she had made of Mother Mary and baby Jesus. And this was like in Mary's clothing. So maybe there's a Christian link that I am only realizing at this moment with you. Could be. I made it to the bottom first. Diana was still up there when the rest of the building started falling. So you see the pattern here and the destruction. I looked for my friends. I never found them. Then I realized I was alone. So I went to be with the victims. The end. So if you've ever been down around the World Trade Center area, there's this area called Bowling Green, which is at the very southern tip of Manhattan. And there's like a park. Lots of green grass and trees. And that's where I went in my dream. That part I also remember. And yeah. And you know, I realized that I'm still going around with the victims. We are all sort of victims of September 11th, aren't we? And even though it's so many years later, it's still very present with all of us, I think. I don't know if it's just because I'm a U.S. citizen or just because I was a New Yorker and the World Trade Center has meant so much to me. I don't know. But I do know that the world is different. And recently, I was thinking, actually, it was a good time to maybe stop so much controls at the airports and things like that. But I will say, recently I've had other experiences with certain foreigners that have led me to believe that maybe we still have to keep our guard up. Sadly. So I know I've been joking a bit and saying, you know, we don't need plastic silverware and we don't need this and that. But, you know, we might still need that. I've been to some places and I've met a few people lately that have led me to believe that there are people out there who are out to do harm. And we need to be careful. That's what I can say. So I appreciate all the people who do keep us safe on a regular basis. I want that really to be said. I know it's not easy, and you're doing a great job. And I know I've given a lot of people involved with me who are trying to find out if I'm an okay presidential candidate or not. I don't like it. I don't like what you've done. I don't like the investigating and all of that, but I understand it. And it is a necessary thing. So I appreciate also what you're doing. Thank you. Yeah, and that's why, with the news of maybe an art connection, it could be somebody heard me. It could be, I mean, I'd hate to think this, that my dream, because I'm pretty sure I told it to my class at Parsons. I can't remember who's in that class anymore, but I hope it wasn't inspiration. So what I will say is that I think it was in 1993, when a bomb was set off in a parking garage in the World Trade Center. And that's when I remembered my book, because I'd put it away for a while. And then, of course, with September 11th, as things were unfolding and the World Trade Center started crashing down, I was like, wow, this is my dream. So I hope my dream and me talking about it at the time was also not something that got passed on to give an idea to others. That would be really horrific for me, because, yeah. But I don't think that's really from me. I don't think so. There's apparently a movie out there that was made, I believe, in Hollywood, that showed airplanes being used like they were during September 11th. And then there's also the plane that went into the Empire State Building. I just hope it wasn't the inspiration for the actual events. That would really suck. That would just absolutely hurt me to the core. What I can say is that my heart goes out to everybody. I mean, truthfully, we are all victims of September 11th. I don't think there's a place on the planet, a country on the planet, that is not untouched by that day. So, we need peace. We need peace. And I have some ideas about peace, and I've been talking about them lately in some of my other videos. And it's possible. If we can live with war and terror, we can live with love and peace and harmony. So sorry to get emotional. I wasn't really thinking I would do that, but I did. And yeah. I'm a little shocked at the art connection. But you need to know that I was there in 85. Now, if somebody got inspired in 85 to do this in 93, and then again in 2001. I suppose it could be. But for me, it was a dream until it became a reality. And then it became a premonition. So I don't have a lot of dreams, luckily. So, and as far as I know, this was the only one that moved me to make such a book. Although I will say that a lot of my childhood nightmares when I was under 10 years old were of blown out buildings, much like what we see in Gaza, where walls are ripped off and you see like squares of rubble of where people were once living and maybe even still today are living. Those were my childhood nightmares. So I don't know. But see, that can be anywhere. That can be in most countries. My childhood, when these were happening, were between 65 and 75. So there was a lot going on around the world at that time. Bombings and other things. Also in, Ireland and Lebanon and Beirut and other places. So anyway, not all my dreams come true. and I luckily don't really dream a lot anymore. So I think those were my most destructive ones, the ones with the blown out buildings and stuff, and then the actual September 11th, or not September 11th, but the World Trade Center is coming down dream. Otherwise, or nightmare. Otherwise, most of my dreams are not so realistic and not so memorable. Only to me, usually. Okay. So, what happened? I don't know. Maybe you people researching artists who might be involved, maybe this helps. I'm putting it out there so that you can do what you have to do now. Okay, so this is the end of my state of my campaign. And I'll be back with the State of the Union and then the State of the World. So I am Susan Maud Buchser-Lochocki, a presidential candidate from the 2024 presidential election, and my website is susan4usa.com. That's Susan, the number 4, usa.com. You can find out more about that there, more about me and other things. Okay, so thank you and see you in the next video. Bye for now.